As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
You just gotta keep living, man. Livin.
Son of a bitch. He stole my life.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Welcome back to the Shop by Shop podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing another film from the greatest studio in American film, A24, with Jane Schoenbrun's new film, I Saw the TV Glow. But first, let's welcome on a guy who probably doesn't need an introduction. He's becoming a familiar face around here, which is Evan. You might recognize him from our Furious episode, or more importantly, the undisputed greatest episode of the Shop by Shop podcast, where we discussed the greatest filmography in cinematic history. So go check that out if you haven't. Evan's from the Average Film Enjoyer podcast, and he's becoming a familiar face around here.
Yeah, it's super fun coming on here because we just on the Average Film Enjoyers, it's a lot of just shooting the shit, and right now we're doing the director deep dive for M. Night Shyamalan, and our last episode was Avatar and After Earth, which is it's 10 minutes worth of stuff to talk to there, and it's just this movie fucking sucks, and that's it. So
Nobody's perfect.
I have fun
Nobody's
coming on and yapping a bit more in depth. Yeah.
It's funny listening to your M Night reviews because it'll go from a half star to a 5-star for the next film, and then keep going back up and down.
Dude, we're doing The Visit and Split on Friday, and I love Split. I'm really high on Split. I think the performance is so good, and
your old take is terrible.
No, yours
is so good.
The revisionist history on old is insane.
It's such a good film.
I was an old defender before it was cool.
It's one of the best. It's visually it's so good. It's shot so well.
It is.
Dude, they made Gael Garcia. What's his name? Shit. From Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Mm-hmm.
Him. They made him.
Was that him? I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah.
I did not realize that was him.
They made him look like a bad actor. Yeah. I have this thing. I love Yorgos's robotic dialogue so much. Killing a Sacred Deer is one of my favorite movies ever. And M. Night does the same thing, but it's just a bad version of it.
That is blasphemous.
It's such an absurd film. It's so good though. It's treated too harshly.
My beef with that movie is that people. Okay, I'm gonna air this out, and I know you guys are gonna disagree with it. People say The Happening is a terrible movie, but it's fucking hilarious. It's really funny. It's
I really want to rewatch it.
Yeah, The Happening is hysterical. So it's a good bad, but people are out here giving old a 4, and they're oh, it's a good movie, and I can't believe that. I've rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna rewatch it again for the pod. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's awful.
I was an old defender from the very start. So
how can you watch a film like that with shot composition and camera work as good as that and not think it's good?
The performances aren't even bad.
They're not bad.
The
They're not
bad. The dialogue.
Thomasin McKenzie is good in that movie.
Yeah, she's good. But
yeah,
I'm so taken back. The baby scene is one of the most insane things put to screen I've ever seen.
The baby scene.
Where
they start great acting, but it's such good acting that it seems bad.
They just start aging so rapidly.
People see it.
It's 5 minutes before they're still kids, and then they have sex in the tent, and then 2 seconds later they're pregnant, and then the baby dies, and it's well, okay, this is really weird.
The split doctor in that film. The split doctor with there's 2 toys, the parents and the divorce is so good.
Is there really? I didn't even notice the split doctor.
How did you not notice the split doctor in that film?
I wasn't paying a lot of attention the last time I watched it.
That's crazy. I'm not surprised.
I think The Visit's pretty underrated though. The Visit's really entertaining.
That's
another one I want to. That's another one I want to rewatch. I didn't love it on first watch.
The son is so entertaining. The white boy rapper kid. Oh, love that guy.
Oh, the grandma's the best. It's
Yeah, but you should check us out. We're doing IMDb top 250. It's like that list changes so often. So we saved a version of the list a while ago. We just did $1 Million. We did a double feature of $1 Million Baby and Klaus. It was like emotional whiplash.
Never
Close.
seen either.
That was first watch for both. It was both peak.
But yeah, M. Night Shyamalan is a filmmaker who it's always something interesting and unique. But now it's time to get back to talking about another filmmaker who's doing very interesting and unique stuff, which is Jane Schoenbrun with I Saw the TV Glow. And this film is, when I watched this film, off the start, it's a film that makes me think there should be an Oscar for best lighting, because the lighting and the color use and shot composition is just so incredible in this film. Definitely some of the best of recent years, but the colors of this film are also used so brilliantly to tell the story and convey the internal feelings of the character. And this is really a very internal character piece, this film. It's not a character study in the way a film like Raging Bull is, where like Raging Bull is a film where we see the internal feelings of the character and how they are expressed outward, where this film is very more surrealism to really kind of fully immerse us in this isolated experience of what the character's feeling very inward. It's a very internal character piece rather than an external character piece that we've seen from a lot of other filmmakers. And on a first watch, I was like, that is a beautiful looking film. The craftsmanship is so insanely precise, but I don't have a fucking clue what it means. I was like, normally when I see films like this where they're very surreal and abstract, I'm like, all right, I don't get it, but like I have some kind of pieces of it. This film, I didn't have the slightest clue as to it. Now I think I've kind of figured it out, and I have an interesting theory. I'm curious what everyone else will think about in terms of the storytelling and the surrealism. But this film really does kind of let the audience interpret what they think it means, or what emotions they take away from it in their own way, which I really like. How it doesn't spoon feed us anything. It really kind of lets the images and the music and the characters and the performances all really speak for themselves. And it's definitely one of the most interesting films of the year, which we have so much to talk about, and we'll of course discuss the golden question most people are probably wondering, which is, what does the film mean? And I'm sure we all have different interpretations of what that is, but yeah, it's there's just so much to say about this film. And spoiler warning, we are going to be spoiling this movie major. So if you haven't seen it, make sure to check it out and come back to the episode after you've seen it. But Oscar, what are your thoughts on I Saw the TV Glow?
Yeah, kind of right from the off when the kind of trailer came out. I know you said, Alex, that A24 had a tie in this. I'm pretty sure they only bought it and distributed it. So all the praise is going to Jane Schoenbrun here. Absolutely. Such a fascinating filmmaker. Between this and We're All Going to the World's Fair, they have no doubt proved how much a unique filmmaker that they actually are. Both of these films encapsulate being kind of drawn into something media related really well. In this case, it's a TV show, and obviously you can tell watching both films that the budgets are massively different. But yeah, I think I saw a critic review that said that Jane Schoenbrun is a filmmaker for this generation, and I think that's so accurate. I think this is definitely one of those films, and I know a lot of people probably look down on that, but I think it's so necessary and important, this film. And Schoenbrun very much understands the concept of show don't tell, like you said, and I think this film so well conveys an exploration of identity without being so exposition heavy, which is so easy to fall into, and I'm so happy that it doesn't. Jane said it themselves that Twin Peaks: The Return was a huge influence on this film, and it is so clear. Spoiler straight away, but just the scene near the end where our main character, played by Justice Smith, opens up his chest. Pardon?
The name was Owen, I'm pretty sure.
Owen, thank you. I don't know why I forgot his name. when he opens up his chest, that is just Twin Peaks: The Return. That's just written all over it. It's actually crazy. But yeah, there's just the entire film just between the two pieces of media. This side, both of them are kind of obsessed with this idea of televisions and the flickering image of a television screen on somebody's face. And there's something about that image is images that are included in this film that are just so haunting. I think we get a shot towards the last act where it's kind of the camera is just getting slowly closer in on Owen's face and it's just turning and the lights are flashing and it's terrifying. It's so unsettling. And I think the ability that kind of Schoenbrun has shown, the jump in ability, even though I absolutely love We're All Going to the World's Fair, is crazy. And yeah, I'm just so excited to see what they do in the future. And yeah, I just cannot wait to dissect this film because it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is a big jump from We're All Going to the World's Fair. I did just rewatch it. It's more found footagey to this, and the bigger budget. It feels a lot bigger and grander scale. I think Jane really has shown with those first two features, though, like to be one of the few voices that really understand and like properly portray that relationship that like our kind of generation has with, or just younger people in general have with the internet and kind of media in general. Like you were saying, We're All Going to the World's Fair done a great job of kind of showing those effects of like isolation and how we interact with the internet in like more of a contemporary setting compared to this. Whereas this is set in the 90s. It's pretty different time. Yet the way the time's explored, it makes it's definitely more relevant than ever. Even though it's set in the 90s, again, it's kind of expressing those themes of isolation, growing your identity through media, like, and even more unique to kind of TV Glow is like your relationship with time, the nostalgia, kind of looking back at our times of innocence and kind of the associations that we have to like film or TV during that time. And I think horror has been such ahead of the game, like even from the 80s, is like a vehicle for like exploring themes of like LGBTQ plus voices and their kind of personal stories. There's even references in here, like even like we'll talk about it later, but like the pilot episode of Pink Opaque like references Sleepaway Camp, which is a reference to the movie Sleepaway Camp, which is a slasher in the 80s, which deals with trans characters. Not like the best representation, but like it really does show like how far we've gone from like the 80s where they had to like subtly like put these hints in about like queer voices and like how far we've came where filmmakers can just now make films that are really deep and personal to themselves, and make it the center point of the film. It's not just this kind of like offhand thing. So yeah, this is a really great point to show how far we really have went in the genre and just films in general. But yeah, great film. I love what Jane Schoenbrun has done so far. A great up and coming director. This is my top 5 of the year. So yeah, it's a unbelievable film.
Sleepaway Camp is so crazy, man. That ending, just every time I think about it, just makes me laugh. It's so good.
I've actually never heard of it, but I was so curious because I'm like, there has to be films and shows that were a big influence for this film, and I was just curious, like which ones. So I wasn't familiar with that.
You never heard of Sleepaway Camp?
No, I'm not like a big horror.
Crazy.
Oh,
it's one of those movies that it's like the most iconic ending of all time type stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
For the most part, it's just a normal slasher, and then the ending just like
it's a bad movie, and
it's not a bad film. It's good.
It's not bad.
Good.
It's so I love it. It's so entertaining.
It's so funny.
Dude, I didn't even pick up on the Sleepaway Camp reference, honestly.
I think I did.
I didn't until the second time, and I was like, oh, I like pointed at the screen, and I realized what they were saying.
Oh, it's so funny.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is my favorite movie of the year, and it's over Dune, over Furiosa. This is like one of my favorite movies. I think something I want to talk about later, especially near the end, is like, does this end on a happy note or a hopeful note? Me and Cash were having a very heated debate, and on my second watch, the look in Owen's face when he looks inside of himself is like this sigh of relief. It looks like a weight is lifted off his shoulders. And now I kind of just view the movie in a bit of a different light, where it's like Owen is like one of the most repressed characters in the history of film. Like, this guy is doing everything in his power to deny his own existence as a person, like as a unique person. He's trying to fit in with the crowd. Um we can talk about that more, but like, yeah, I think this movie is absolutely brilliant. The use of color is like shit that needs to be studied in books. Like, everything feels so perfectly placed. Every moment of color, like, something I didn't notice right away, but Cash pointed out to me, was that in the first few scenes when they're watching the Pink Opaque, him and Maddie, the reflection of the TV is pink on their faces, and when he sits down to watch the season finale, or the finale of the show, it's blue reflecting on his face. Like, the way Jane, and I mean, I've talked about it before, but the shot of him eating the cotton candy, and his mom says to him, like, I just want to make sure you're on your right path in life, and he spits on the blue cotton candy the moment his mom says that, and it evaporates. Like, the way the use of color is done in this movie is just insane. It's so good. I think it's a pretty entertaining movie too. Like, it's the pacing is insane. It blows by. Um but I think it is like an exploration of identity that is just so special, because it's very heavily, like, rooted in those LGBT themes, but I don't think that this is exclusively a movie for that audience. Like, if
Mhm.
you've ever felt, oh shit, like, this doesn't quite feel like who I am, or like I don't fit in here, you'll like this movie, because it speaks to so many different struggles of our generation. What you said, Oscar, like, Jane is a director for this generation. Like, we're all going to the World's Fair. People, like old people, wouldn't like that movie because it's about a chronically online girl who bed rots and does internet challenges, and it's awesome. But those kinds of identity crises aren't they weren't as, like, well known back then, I guess, like, people weren't as open about it, and now it's something where you can, like, speak out about it and find your own community. And I just think the way this movie, and again, it's like, it kind of is like that feel good thing where it's like you feel seen, just in general, straight, gay, trans, whatever. Like, there's something here for you to connect with, and I think that's really impressive. I think the score is insane, and the soundtrack. I saw like a tweet about this. I don't know the exact thing, but I believe Jane reached out to their favorite artists and was like, "Do you want to make a song for my movie?" And that's where the soundtrack came
Mhm.
from. It's all original songs, like, for the movie. Like, that's so cool, and every song fits the movie so well. Alex G's soundtrack is, like, super moody and fits the, like, neon lighting so well. The scene with Phoebe Bridgers, and I can't remember the other singer's name, but like the bar scene, insane. That song is so depressing. It's like, I was watching it on the couch today. I sat there crying. Like, I don't cry at movies that much anymore, but that song just makes me so sad. Yeah, I just think this movie is so, even though it leaves, like, it's all open to interpretation. Like, it's like you know, there's nothing there on the plate. You got to dig for it. It's
Mhm.
so easy to just, like, see something and be like, yeah, that feels right. And like Alex said, like, everyone's gonna have their own interpretation, but I think regardless of your own interpretation, like, there's something there to fall in love with and, like, connect deeply with. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think it's a
I think that's
masterpiece. I
what
love this movie.
I think that's what's so cool about Jen, from like what I've been seeing in interviews and stuff. Film is this like straightforward, like narrative driven, just straightforward movie. Like it really is just whatever you take from the film, and like you're saying, it's not like I've been seeing people say like they're just forcing in like representation into this, and it's such a stupid way of looking at it because like you
Yeah.
really could miss all of that. And like you're saying, like it's not just towards like a trans voices or something. Like you really could, like if it's like a you're not like chasing a dream or relate to personally. Like if you've not like chased it, or like if it's eating inside of you, if you've never explored it, so it's not just like a lot of people can relate something in their life to it, and that's why the film does work quite well.
Yeah, I think it's Maddie's character is one of the more like things that I still question, but Maddie being a person that has a shit life at home and just wants to escape, like there you go. There's a pretty common thing that
Mhm.
people who don't want to live at home, they can like latch onto that feeling. And yeah, it's just it's so sick. I don't know where you guys want to start with breaking it down, but I'm
I know
excited.
one thing. I know some people really like happy cinema and something that brings them up, but sometimes you just need a really hopeless film that it just brings on this kind of slight wave of relatability that I think a lot of people will relate to. Just how by the end there's just no hope. There's like glimpses of it, and obviously with the ending, I think the last line of the film, he's kind of like he's going around and apologizing. Is like, oh, sorry, it's my new medication. It's so sad, man. It is so sad. Evan, you were saying, is it a hopeful or a hopeless ending? It's such a hopeless ending. We've got kind of, yeah, he has an inhaler throughout the film, which I think is a seen as the medication is kind of keeping him in this body, and that's kind of like the restrictive thing of this film. And I think it's done so well. But yeah, sometimes hopeless cinema is. I do really like it. There's just something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Italian, so we like our endings nice. Italians do not believe in happy endings. But yeah, I think this is like what Ryan said. I love Jane Schoenbrun's approach to filmmaking, where it's a lot of the criticism I keep seeing about this film is stuff that's like, oh, like it's like where's like the it's all stuff that is people asking for realism and like rules of screenwriting in a film that makes it very clear from the start it has no interest in it. And it's very much a film about, wanting to feel free and alive. And Jane Schoenbrun really takes that approach to filmmaking, where the approach to screenwriting and the direction are totally free form. This is totally surrealism. It's not uh, held down by like the rules of screenwriting, like where's the first act turning point and the rising action, all of that. Like that's not what this film is interested in. What this film is, and I argue this with people a lot when I say like movies don't need a plot. They're always like, oh, well, no, you need plot, you need motivation, all this stuff. And I'm like, all art and film really needs to do is an ability to create an emotional response. And I think that Jane is much more interested in, exploring a deep character study and the internal feelings of this character than, just forcing a plot and a narrative and narrative conflict of like this overarching objective. There's not really this overarching objective and deadline for the film that, so many mainstream films have. And I love how it's just totally kind of free form in its approach, but so emotionally strong at the same time. Because, like I've said, I think film is really all about an ability to create an emotional response. And this film is just totally free of the rules of cinema. And I encourage more filmmakers to really take that approach of not being held down by, just doing a movie the same way that they've been doing it for 100 years with, story structure. There's just so many more ways to use this art form. And I like seeing filmmakers who are really kind of pushing the boundaries of, how these stories can be told and these cinematic experiences can be created. And in terms of experience, this film is really isolated. Like a lot of other filmmakers, I think, would tell this story and have a lot of other characters who are like passing judgment or like repressing the character. And like we do see flashes of those characters here and there, but it's really like there's, aside from Owen and Madison, like no other characters are really that present in the film for the most part on like a long period of time. Like it almost feels like an Edward Hopper painting and just how kind of empty this world is. And it's a film that creates an emotional response, I think, from the audience. At least that's how I felt. And I think that's how the three of you felt as well, even though there's some people who didn't have that same response, but it is an emotionless film because it's all about, like Evan said, with this character being such a repressed character, the emotions on screen are so repressed. And I think Jane Schoenbrun creates the emotion through the images and the composition, but the actual characters and the performances are very emotionless, which some people didn't like and called it bad acting when it's clearly very intentional. Like it's clearly the intention was to have this kind of, because I think it comes down to this. I think that the film is ultimately at its core about feeling alive, which then of course the buried alive metaphor comes with, which I interpret it as kind of burying this part of yourself that makes you feel alive. And it's like the hallway walk scene, which is such a great sequence where really nothing's happening and it's just creating a mood and the feeling. It's really just all about feeling alive and feeling and the way media can create a response to make people feel alive. And I think that's just such a huge strength to this film about really, it's not about what's, real or not real in terms of reality versus media, but the way we feel in response to the media and how alive we can feel from it, rather than, even if it's not, the same as reality.
This kind of the pink opaque, this kind of alternate TV world, I think is just created so well. The atmosphere and everything, and obviously it's kind of like when we kind of get sequences of it, we obviously the visuals are different. It's got kind of the fuzziness of the kind of TVs in those times, and the aspect ratio is slightly different. Just that whole atmosphere from creating your own TV show that Jane so cleverly does is insane, and the characters within that are just so, like the Moons, Mr. Melancholy, it's so wild, and the makeup for all those characters are absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I think it's just so impressive to create this alternate world and have us so encapsulated by it. And obviously, I guess the whole point of the story is that is the actual reality that they're living in, and ours isn't. I think Jane mentioned in interviews that this film was kind of for all the people that spent all their summers just watching TV in their basement. I think that's kind of so clear, and I know I've spoken to some people about kind of the influence of the TV shows that they've kind of all brought together, and it's so kind of, it's so cool to see. I guess, well, obviously I didn't grow up in that time, but yeah, I just think it's so impressive just to create this alternate world that feels so kind of like ours and so connected to the one in the film, which I guess is the whole purpose, to see how close they are. But yeah, I guess if there's one thing I learned in the film is how much hell suburbs are. But yeah, that's the whole point. I think of that kind of
Some like
world.
more David Lynch stuff coming in there.
Yeah, it's screaming David Lynch, and it's so funny. Just suburbs.
Yeah, it felt so David Lynch inspired to me. Like I was like, that's one takeaway from the first watch. I'm like, I don't know what this film means, but I know it's inspired by David Lynch.
Yeah, suburbs, man. I like when filmmakers use suburbs, because I guess in the UK it's not necessarily the same, but definitely in US you see shots of suburbs, and it's like a maze, because it's everywhere looks the same. It's kind of the same kind of cars in you, and it's like it's endless, it seems, in those kind of cities and towns. But yeah, it's such a perfect setting as well. And yeah, just absolutely brilliant, the whole atmosphere in general.
Yeah. Speaking of the suburbs, like turning such a bland neighborhood into one of the most beautiful shots of the year with the "There Is Still Time." Like, then it's the same shit as Furiosa with the nighttime shots, where it's just like dusk, and it's like this blue, purpley. Oh, it just looks so good. One thing I wanted to get your opinion on is the narration. Like, it's
Don't
a sitcom.
disrespect TV glow like that.
What?
Disrespecting what?
Don't disrespect
You mean
TV glow like that. I'm not a fan of the
Oh.
The Furios. It was a shot at the Day for Night and
Yeah,
Furiosa.
yeah. Whatever.
Furious is better.
That's Furious is number 2, so I'm not too mad about that.
Perfect.
The like
It was delayed. It took a moment to load. I was trying to time it with others.
I still can't hear it. This was a problem when we recorded last
I
time.
can hear it
couldn't
now.
hear
I can hear it now.
It's only me, apparently.
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, the Owen talking to the screen like it's a TV sitcom. I was discussing this in the Real Talk Discord, and a lot of people hated this, and I love it so much. Maddie has this line in the bar scene where she asks Owen, and it's like, "Do you ever feel like you're not in control of your own life, and you're living in a TV show?" And that scene where it's right after his dad dies, and he gets the new TV, and he looks at the screen and he goes, "I even have a family now, and I love them more than anything." Like, that is the most end of a 90s TV show, like, wrap this shit up, happy ending thing ever. And it is so unbelievably forced, just like reiterating how repressed Owen is as a person, where it's like he goes through trauma and he's talking about how he never saw Maddie ever again and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, I have a family and I'm watching Netflix. So I think that it fits really well because it like only enhances his deep connection to being inside of a TV show that he feels at home at. So I was curious what you guys thought about it, because I think it fits the film really well.
I completely agree. The film has like meta Easter eggs. I guess this is kind of the biggest one, kind of almost breaking the fourth wall, but I guess from the meaning of the film, it's not actually necessarily. But yeah, I think it's like I said, it fits so well, and it just feels like Twin Peaks is crazy. Not that there are any kind of direct fourth wall breaks in Twin Peaks. Just that the whole kind of concept of being aware that you're in a TV show works so well in both, and especially in this as well. And yeah, I know people have been complaining about it, but like you said, Evan, I think it fits perfectly.
Yeah. I was having a debate with another guy he was saying, I can't remember who it was, but he was like, where's the outside motivation for why Owen's sad? Like, why isn't the dad being down on him more? I'm like, yeah, what are we doing?
I said, it's people asking for realism from a film
I know.
has no interest in being grounded in realism. Like, it's just a stupid criticism.
Like,
some people are like, oh, I need more explanations of things. I need more explanations. Why?
You can see the emotions in his face. That's all the explanation you need. Like, you can see how broken down he is. Like, that should be enough, and you don't need it force fed to you.
It also would be out of character because, like we've talked about, this is a character who represses their emotions. This is not a character who is likely to talk about how they're feeling and, just have a forced exposition dump. Like, what a lot of other writers would do is they would probably have Madison, of course, would be the character he would say it to, just like dump everything. But like some people, even those closest to them, don't always, say everything they're feeling. And this is clearly that type of character. So it would just be out of character to have one of those exposition dumps, in my opinion, and also would not make the film better.
Yeah, there's that. It's when he's in the 9th grade. I think it's after like the fair or like the carnival, and he's like, "Can I watch the Pinko Pig tonight?" And she's like, "Well, your bedtime's 10:15." And then he asks his dad, and his dad says, "Isn't that a show for girls?" And he says nothing. And if it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna get more explanation, he would have been like, no, it's not, and it's this, and it's this, and this, and it makes me feel good. Like, yeah, it's just like that's not what the movie is. Yeah.
And that's taken from like real life experiences that Jane had, I think. Although the movie isn't like autobiographic, that does make sense. Like kind of like blocking out like the bad things, because like the only really bad memory he has with his dad that he remembers is to do with the show. Like what Alex was saying.
Dude, that scene makes me feel horrific when he puts his head in the TV.
Oh yeah.
That scene gives me goosebumps. Like just
And then it
oh,
is he when he's like screaming of like burning in the shower afterwards.
yeah. And he's
That-
yelling, "You're not my father," and it's like the
Yeah.
sparking, like he's expelling all that. Oh, that the visuals and that shit in theaters made me feel not good.
See, real quick, it's interesting though how you mentioned the visuals there, because it actually is done almost entirely with obstruction. Like Jane Schoenbrun really does obstruct our view of that sequence, like with fast cutting, like the camera can't, especially the head in the tub scene. Like it really is hard to to lock in and actually see what's going on. And the sound is just so horrifying. And like we get enough little glimpses from the obstruction. And I think that's why it makes it so effective. Like it's not quite like a Jaws of like off screen versus on screen, but like it is to a degree that like the audience will create a more horrifying imagination of it in their mind than what is actually being. I mean, we see enough on screen for it to be disturbing, but it's very like obstructed and like cut and flashes so quick that we can't like fully lock our eyes in on it. So I think it's a very smart directing decision there.
Yeah, the audio is so overstimulating too. Like it's very staticky and it's just yelling, and you can't really tell. Like I was excited to rewatch it at home just so I could have subtitles on for that scene and then the scene at the end when he's yelling, because it's like it's so loud and it's like you don't really need to know what he's saying. You get the gist of it.
I think it's a good time. I'm curious what you guys think about my theory. So, my theory is that the entire film is one flashback and one dream. So, if you notice, the first quarter to a third around is like the scenes where Owen's a kid. And then there's some flashes, random flashes forward to older Owen looking at a fire. So I think the first quarter to a third is him, because remember when Maddie, so I think Madison dies. I think she dies around that point and she's dead from then on. So I think that he's looking into the fire and thinking about Madison and like reminiscing on the past. He goes home and turns on. Dude, we'll get into the color. There's so much to talk about color. We'll get into that more. But he goes home and what's it called? Goes home, turns on the TV, or no, yeah, goes home, turns on the TV from a day at work. We're like, I don't want to get too much to the color theories yet, but he goes home, turns on the TV. It's blue light on the TV. From then on, that's when the movie gets really abstract and surreal. Like before then, there's like fourth wall breaking and stuff like that, but it's definitely a lot more reserved and like easier to keep track of the film. There's much more clarity in that first quarter of the film. So I think that is a flashback. It gets really abstract after he goes to bed there. And that's when Madison comes back. Everything about like the grocery store is unrealistically empty. The way it kind of jumps around with the cutting. And this is kind of how it's in terms of the way we deal with media, how in a dream, it's, whether it's reality, media, imagination, all gets blended together into one thing, which is why Madison has now been inside of the show, because Madison and his memory of Madison is now blended in with the memories of the Pink Opay. And so I think that's where it's essentially most of the film, because there's theories that dreams are our subconscious trying to communicate with us in different ways. And I feel like Madison is his subconscious in the dream trying to send a message to him, that where he eventually makes the decision to run away. Because also remember, he has that impactful conversation with Madison in the bleachers by the football field. And this is where she says, like, what are you into? And he says he's not sure, when likely deep down he does. He's also, it's worth noting, wearing a pink shirt in that scene. And then that's the first time he kind of made the decision to neglect what he's feeling inside. And then
Yeah.
towards the end of the dream makes that same decision and runs away when she calls him Isabel. So I think that that ends the dream, because after that, there's the voiceover we hear that he never saw Madison again, because in my theory, she was in the dream. But also, if you notice, he's looking out his bedroom window as he's saying that voiceover, because he's just woken up from the dream. So I think that what most of the film is the subconscious communication trying to reflect on that decision, because the football field, where that first decision to neglect how he was feeling and not open up with an exposition dump, was such an important realization moment internally with the character. And we notice we keep coming back to that football field frequently. It's nighttime in the dream sequences versus daytime and what it was in reality, but we keep coming back. And I think what it is the kind of real memories, the TV show, the impactful emotions, all being kind of expressed, because dreams, like I've said, unite all of that together, and our subconscious uses all of those memories and feelings to try and communicate with us. So I think most of the film is subconscious communication, because also, if you think of something, there's a good chance you're going to dream about it. So the first quarter, he's thinking about Madison in the show, and then the next segment is dreaming on what he spent the day thinking of. So that's my theory. I'm curious what you guys think.
Interesting.
And feel free to tell me I'm completely wrong.
I
don't think there's any wrong way of looking at it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but like,
I guess from what I got from the film, it's probably the most obvious interpretation that the TV show is their reality, and that the suburbs is their like the hell that they've been trapped in by Mr. Melancholy. And when Maddie disappears for the first time, she just magically disappears and her TV set's burning in the backyard. That's when she escapes for the first time, and then later on when she comes back is when she comes back to save him. Because there's kind of the that whole the segment of kind of the grave bits, where that last episode in the TV show, they just ends, and I can't what are they, Tara and Isabel, that's it. That's who they actually are. I can't remember which way around it is.
Owen's Isabel.
Thank you. And yeah, how they just get killed off, and then they get Mr. Melancholy gives him his juice thing, gets shoved in the grave, and then from the grave moment is when they come into their reality, the kind of the trapped reality. But from what our perspective, it's just Earth and just normal. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of limitations in that. That's what I got away with it. I don't know what Evan and Ryan think.
Yeah, I know. I don't really have like a set definition of what was happening. I like bits of both of your explanations, honestly. I mean, so much of it is like dreamlike, so I could see that like being what's happening, but like I don't know. I really like the idea of like him being stuck in like suburbia, like Oscar was saying, and just being stuck with like the isolation and everybody putting him down and that, and like her leaving, her actually leaving instead of dying. I kind of like that more than it being a dream. But yeah, I'm not really set, especially on like what was actually happening. What about you, Evan?
Yeah. I find it very hard to formulate a proper like step by step of what happens in this movie. I find that you just like pick themes and scenes that fit into that thing you're trying to explain. I find I keep coming back to this scene where Mr. Melancholy is like, I mean, also we got to talk about how insane Mr. Melancholy looks when he's right in their face. Oh, it's so good. But he says, I think you're really gonna like the Midnight Realm. It's just like and he's got the snow globe. And right before that, Owen says to Maddie, this isn't the Midnight Realm, it's just the suburbs. And it's when Mr. Melancholy's holding the snow globe, it's Owen watching the pink opaque, and he shakes it all up, and then it's the shot of the parachute, the pink, white, blue parachute deflating. And it's just like, I find that Owen is such a repressed person, and he's searching for anything to make himself feel how he wants to, like, to connect. So I think it's just like Alex says, a movie about being free. I think it's like, I mean, it's, yeah, I find it that the word for me is like connection. Like, it's all about connecting to something, whether it's media, another person like Maddie, or something like that. And the God, again, this movie is hard to talk about in a like like a makes sense. But the bar scene, and then the planetarium scene, and then the football field scene are so dreamlike and so nonsensical. It throws so much information at you, and Maddie and Owen are both unreliable characters. Like, you don't know if what they're saying is true. So for me, I find that Owen is he knows who he is, and Maddie is desperately trying to throw it in his face what he is so that he can realize it. And it starts in the bar scene. It's like, think back on the show, think back on how you feel. And Owen's like, fuck that, like, I don't get down with those emotions, like, I'm not thinking about that. And it progresses into the planetarium scene, where Maddie is straight up talking to him and calling him Isabel. You get the shot of him wearing the dress in the football field. Like, the planetarium scene is so in your face of, Owen, please wake up. What's going on here? You get the football field scene, which is really, like, it really throws me for a loop. Maddie's talking about how she got buried alive and then realized, yeah, no, don't kill me. Like Alex said, it's like that burying yourself and realizing, no, I want to be free, maybe. But, and then right after that, you get the There Is Still Time shot, which I think that's like a message from Maddie. Like, all these scenes are really surreal and dreamlike ways of trying to wake Owen up to who he is, because Maddie can see it, and we see it, but he is so intent on being that suburbia functioning member of society, and like Mr. Melancholy is keeping it that way, taking the hearts out. He says that the bleachers, I love that line of, I think I like TV shows. That shit's hilarious. That's such a good line. But he says, anytime I think about that stuff, I feel like somebody cut me open and ripped out the insides, or something like that. Like, he feels empty, but he's not. It's just like so deep down that he feels fully empty. So for me, it's just this over exaggerated story of somebody trying so hard to break out of this like insanely strong like castle they've built around their own emotions. And that's kind of why I find the scene when he cuts open his chest a bit hopeful, because it's that realization that, yeah, it's there. And the song that plays during that scene is the same song that plays in the very first scene of the movie when he's walking through the pink, white, and blue parachute and looks so amazed by all of it. It's the exact same song. So I find that that's like he's finally reconnecting to those feelings. The aging thing is a whole another thing that is like really weird. And but yeah, like That's how I feel. It's a lot, but I just find that's I'll keep it at
Yeah.
that for now.
No, I
My
agree.
favorite
Yeah.
song from the soundtrack is absolutely Anthems for a 17-year-old Girl. It's so good.
Yeah.
I can't stop listening to it. It's the one from the trailer. That is.
Which one's that
it's
again?
pretty
When
well-
when is it played in the film?
It's the one
I
that
can't
plays at
remember
the
when it's played in
beginning,
the
and it's the
film.
one that plays during the chess scene.
Real
Yeah,
quick,
Anthems.
Okay, right.
before we get into the color theory and the music of the film, because there's so much there, I think we should go into our intermission. What do you guys think?
Cool.
So let's start with our Q&A. So we have a link in the description below where you can ask us questions and be featured. We'll respond to them in the intermission. If your question doesn't get asked, don't worry. We'll make sure to address it in the future episode. So we normally do about 5 an episode. Our first question comes from Man in the Yellow Hat. What's a movie you think you could have directed and made better? And additional note, he said Ryan cannot say Wonka.
No film.
Since we started recording this episode, he has logged Wonka twice more.
Yeah, he got his wisdom teeth out today, so he's just
What?
sitting on the couch watching Wonka.
Alex, probably. Me, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't like to shit on other filmmakers and say
People say they could. They couldn't.
Yeah, I would say if I really think there's probably some bad Philadelphia movies where they didn't really understand the city and the sense of place. So I'm sure if I start thinking there's one of them that I could have done better. But that's the only one I would really kind of throw under the bus like that. Either of you, Ryan and Evan, do you have any you would say?
Hell no. I don't have an eye for that stuff, dude. I think I like There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to disrespect any films, so no.
Yeah, I just don't think I could. People say, "Oh, I could do a better job." I don't think you understand the process of.
It's impressive just to make a film.
Shooting a film, exactly, and editing and everything like that. You couldn't.
Yeah, when you see a shit movie or a movie you think this is not good, you still have to remember how hard it was to get that done, how many people are involved in the process, how many things need to go right, how many things can go wrong in a production. Actor could be sick one day or cancel last minute. There's just so many variables that could have gone wrong in that production to make it the disappointing product that some films end up being, but it's still an insane accomplishment just to finish one.
That's why I always say shit films are necessary, because it shows you how hard it is and it makes you appreciate the great ones.
I was just about to say, there's no good films without bad films, and vice versa.
Watching all 15 Jeff Profit movies just enhanced my 5 stars.
I was waiting for his name to come up.
Actually, maybe I do have an answer to that question now.
Do not disrespect the goat. We are not tolerating goats over here.
I'm shitting in an actual prison instead of.
Actually, I have an answer. Blair Witch Project. The Blair
Get
Witch
outta
Project. Blair Witch Project. Any day of the week.
God damn it.
You know what? I actually do have one. You know what? Even though I respect him so much as a filmmaker, Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye. He did not understand.
No,
That's ridiculous. Come on.
Raymond Chandler.
I haven't
The Long
even seen
Goodbye.
it.
He didn't understand that book or Raymond Chandler as an author at all. So I'm going with The Long Goodbye. I love Robert Altman, but now you fucked that one up. I could do that
It's a
one better.
great film.
Dude, I love that movie.
And honestly, Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles. I could do better than that. That one.
Your hatred for The Long Goodbye is absolutely crazy, and Robert Altman is such a good director.
This is that's actually not the same, but still, no. I think Robert Altman's a great director. I like a lot of his films. I just don't think he was understood that novel at all. The character of Marlowe. Literally, there's a line in the book where she says, "You are such a miserable, lonely man. You don't even have a pet. You're so miserable and lonely." And then they give him a pet cat that he walks around with the entire film. It's just so. I could go on for.
What's worse, The Long Goodbye or the Liam Neeson Marlowe movie that came out last year?
I didn't see the Liam Neeson one, but honestly, it'd be
Long Goodbye or The Great Gatsby, Alex.
The Long Goodbye. I hate The Great Gatsby even more. But that one is I can tell a pretty difficult direction to pull off, so I wasn't going to name that one. But I really hate Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby. Like, I'll put it this way: like, Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby is a very different interpretation. Like, Robert Altman's A Long Goodbye just didn't understand the novel at all. Like, it literally is just basically like selling you on a familiar name. Like, it's such a disservice to the novel, to one of the greatest novels ever written.
Fair enough. Still a great film.
dear.
Next question. This has sparked some debate too. Who is your favorite Pixar character? This is from Jonathan.
Ooh.
Buzz Lightyear. Not even close.
Ooh, yeah, that might be a good shout. Lotso the Bear is pretty good.
Lotso's good. Lotso's a good pick.
He's not even a
Sully
top,
or
he's
Mike
not even a
Wazowski,
top
actually.
2 Toy Story villain.
I agree. Honestly, Lotso, I would have put in my top 10 for Toy Story, but that's just because Toy Story is just so peak. But also,
Woody.
shout out to Wally. Wally's up there. Love Wally.
Wally's
Buzz
banger,
Lightyear's easily my guy.
Might be Sully or Mike Wazowski.
Very respectable pick.
I mean, Mike Wazowski and shout out Lightning McQueen, the GOAT. Cars
Oh, I
underrated.
forgot. Lightning
Cars
McQueen.
underrated. Cars is underrated.
Tomater.
Tomater.
Hell yeah, dude.
Guido, the pit stop guy from Cars.
Oh, Guido.
The best
That
scene
guy
in
is such a
in
beast.
Pixar history.
Hell yeah. Dude, the Cars 3 poster is one of the hardest posters in
That is,
the history of cinema.
and it provided us with the "you goat wash" pic.
Yeah.
That meme when you find out you goat washed.
Oh, honestly,
dear.
sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying that post is so good.
Shout out to Crush from Finding Nemo as well. That's my guy. And
True.
Bruce. I love Bruce too, but
No, you should scare me. He's terrifying.
I love Bruce. Now, Gil. Gil was my guy.
Who is that?
2000, early 2000s Pixar was goated.
He's the leader from the In the Fish Tank in the dentist's office.
Oh yeah, is that the one that Willem
Dafoe
voice?
No, Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's a good
dear.
question.
All right, so Ryan said, wait, Ryan, who was your pick?
Woody.
Woody, respectable. Very, very respectable.
I'm going to say Mike Wazowski.
Next question. From Dylan Ship. Has Oscar Trinick ever thought about the fact that he is wrong about Inception?
No,
I do have
word for word.
I think it's a 3.5.
No, it's like a certified 4.
Yeah, it's like just the most solid 4 out of 5 ever.
Dude, Seth.
It's just, it's so
infuriated
exposition
today.
heavy that it can't
It
go
is.
over a 3.5. It is just, it's
I respect
exposition film.
I'll say this:
And-
I'd probably give it a 3.5 before I gave it a 4.5. I will say that.
It's just,
Yeah, that's right.
I'm very right about that film. It's just prime Nolan in his kind of that era of what everything he was doing wrong. He's got a lot better now. Past 3 films actually have all been massively improved because his past 2 films are his best. But yeah, Inception is the prime example of everything he was doing wrong at that time with his writing. Good film. I still think it's good. Just nowhere near his best. Nowhere near.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the script, or I think the strength of the film is by far Hans Zimmer. So
Yeah. I
How would
agree.
you guys rank Time, Cornfield Chase, and Can You Hear the Music?
Can You Hear the Music's one?
Yeah.
No. Time.
be-
Can You Hear the Music? Cornfield Chase.
No. Can You Hear the Music is clear.
It's
Can
easy.
you hear
No,
the music
time
and then
and
Time?
Can You Hear the Music? They're close. They're close.
Yeah.
They're close. Time
No,
carries
I
that
think I'm
film.
putting Cornfield Chase over Time. I don't know. That's-
No, Time is better than
That's
Cornfield
tough.
Chase.
I thought Time is a long song, so I
Yeah.
feel like you sit with
Time
it
is
so
better than
much.
Cornfield
Time's like
Chase.
5 minutes long.
But
They're both
I
deep.
do know, but Time, I love the way it builds up. But yeah, Time's better than Cornfield Chase. That's all we need to know.
All right. That's all we got for this week. What are our top 5 watches of the last week? Evan, you are our guest. Why don't you start us off?
Dude, okay.
Top 5.
I've been
Yeah.
watching some bangers in the past
Dude,
week.
I'll watch some Heat. Okay, let me shut Tampopo. I fucking loved Tampopo.
Oh,
Banger.
banging.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Especially not on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
Oh
dude,
yeah, true.
I got McDonald's before I watched Tampopo, and it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my entire life. I was like, I'm fueling my body with this crap. Tampopo, maybe the most insane sex scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. They're crazy. Putting that live shrimp in the bowl and flipping it on her stomach. Oh, yeah. And the egg, dude, the egg thing is wild. I
The
love
egg was
Tampopo.
disgusting.
Yeah.
It's so good.
For those listening that don't know, I love cooking and baking and all that shit. So this movie spoke to me. Like it's easy five. $1 Million Baby. I went into it knowing how it ended, so I was like, I don't really want to watch it. It's amazing. I loved it. The performance is so good. It's shot. It feels so real. Like it feels like a documentary almost. Like it's not like Rocky where it's like a triumphant movie, which I appreciated. Like Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood are so good. Hilary Swank's insane. Even knowing the last act of the movie didn't take away from it. I gave it a 4.5. I loved it. These aren't super in order, but I'm just gonna keep going. I watched Nowhere, which you've seen, Alex.
It's a batshit crazy movie.
Insane movie.
Nowhere.
It's
Who's
from
that?
the guy. It's
Greg
Greg.
Araki.
Yeah, the guy who did Mysterious Skin.
Oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that for a while.
It's
Mysterious Skin
really
is so
weird.
good.
I almost I was torn between giving this a 4-star and a 1-star because I kind of hated it, but it's so weird and like the visuals are so good that I kind of like it. I want to see it again. They're playing a few of Greg Araki's movies at my like retro theater right now, and I kind of want to go.
The ending's fire.
Yeah, it's sick.
He's kind of like the
He made
goat of
Mysterious
like American queer cinema, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
This is like the most 4 out of 5 dad movie ever. I watched Land of Bad the other day because they put it on Netflix. Dude, this movie kind of rips. Like Russell Crowe's this big fat dude sitting in a drone operating chair. I thought the action was really well directed. It's totally a dad movie. Like watch it with your dad and he'll love it. I gave it a 4. It's pretty enjoyable. The action, it's like everyone before I watched it was like it has better slow-mo than Zack Snyder, which some people
Not
will say
hard.
that's not hard. Yeah.
Not hard.
I actually thought it was pretty entertaining. And then lastly, I watched The Insider yesterday and I fucking adored it. It is my second favorite Michael Mann movie. I give it a
Sick.
5. I have it over Heat and Thief.
Wait, please don't say Collateral's your first
Collateral's
one.
easy number 1.
Oh,
Easy
come on,
number one.
it's so overrated with the people that I talk to. It's a damn good film, but people like have it as so many people have it as their best. It's nowhere near his best.
I love
It's
Collateral.
lower tier Michael Mann, even though it's still a 4 out of 5.
But the Insider is this like really tight corporate thriller. The performances are insane. Al Pacino and Russell Crowe are just going crazy. It's got Michael Gambon, like Dumbledore, is in it.
I need to get around to watching that.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer. It's phenomenal. The shot selection is insane. The pacing it's decent. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's pretty long, but for a movie about a whistleblower in the tobacco industry, I thought it was fascinating and really good. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, the cast sounds insane.
Nice.
It's really good. You guys should watch it.
I do need to watch it. I've been meaning to watch it for a while.
It was on the Criterion Channel. It's on Disney Plus too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on Disney Plus over here. Nice. Pretty damn good week for me. I don't think I'm going to go over any rewatches because there's some stuff I want to talk about. So my number 5 would be wait, where am I looking? Let me one. My number 5, is Sorrentino's Youth. I know Alex has seen that.
Great
Really
film.
fantastic film. My second Sorrentino, I not as good as The Hand of God. Hand of God is an incredible film. I absolutely love that. But yeah, Youth still really, really good. I thought the casting was really, really great. And I kind of mentioned in my review, I really like when filmmakers use kind of actors across generations, like simultaneously, to convey one arc. I think it is so clever. And kind of wonderful. And I think this film does it really, really well. Yeah, Sorrentino just continues to impress. I think he's a really unique kind of filmmaker in the way he mixes his themes. Next was
I hate
yeah,
that when
what was
you
that?
mentioned actors across generations. My first thought was the Robert Zemeckis AI aging for Tom Hanks.
He's talking about different actors, though.
Yeah,
Like different actors conveying one arc, because like
That's
this
really
film is
cool.
about two old dudes. Well, it's not clear as in but I think that's the takeaway I got from it. 'Cause it's about these two old guys reflecting on their past and their youth and kind of it's quite like a sexual film, and it's a lot of kind of visions of naked women, and there's just a lot of kind of interactions with their kind of people younger than them, like their sons and nephews and then children. And I think it's just a good way of reflecting like on them as themselves by using actors from all generations, like to convey like a singular arc maybe. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I then watched I watched two Bernardo Bertolucci films this week. My first one was The Dreamers, which is Evan, do you know anything about this film?
no.
So I think do you know what it's about, Alex?
I actually don't. I don't really look up what they're about, but I know that he explores a lot of really, I guess you could say controversial, kind of like taboo subject matter.
Yeah.
So
Is this the bathtub one?
Surprise me.
Yeah, it's a I think it's Eva Green's first role in a film ever. I think that's all you need to know if you want to watch this film. Incredible film. About it's a love triangle basically, but with a brother and sister.
Jesus.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me with him.
Yeah, but actually, it's not. There's like interesting stuff with those two, but it's the third, like the American guy that comes along who has kind of the big relationship with the sister in that film, and they get up to some stuff. But yeah, it's really, really good introduction, and it's just the way he mixes politics into his film without kind of making it pushy. And kind of making it the biggest thing in this film, I think is really, really important. And I think the kind of the political side of the films just really, really works well with kind of the environment of the characters. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. And I wasn't expecting that kind of things. And it's funny when all your three protagonists are cinephiles, because they just spent the entire thing arguing about different films. And they're all film lovers, and that's what kind of gets everything going, sets everything into motion basically. But I'd highly recommend it. Really, really good film. Then my number 3 would be my first Goddard, which I know
You forgot to mention the other Bertolucci masterpiece you watched.
Yeah, that's coming up. Wait.
I didn't realize you go in order. I didn't realize you go in order.
I'm still at number 3. Number 3, my first Goddard was Contempt. Absolutely brilliant film. Lovely film about filmmaking and relationships. The thing I said in my film, the way Goddard just guides the camera across each scene with little takes, I think is just absolutely brilliant. So impressed with his direction in this first one. The score, they would kind of get this same main theme playing throughout the film a lot, and I think it's such an emotional piece of music. The film flows brilliantly, and I just had such a good time with it. Really, really, really enjoyed it.
Not much melatonin from him, that one.
No.
Is he like Tarkovsky, just like a melatonin merchant?
No, he's actually really good. But like,
Oh, he's Tarkovsky.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean that as
Um,
slander to Tarkovsky.
yeah. My number 2 is Luchino Visconti's The Leopard. Really, really fantastic film. I think a lot of people struggle with this film because of kind of the time period in history it's set. Luckily, I have wrote countless essays on this time period in the unification of Italy and know a lot about it. And I had such a good time with this film. It's 3 hours long. It's absolutely stunning. I just think the commentary on like family dynamics, mix of local and national politics, is so difficult to achieve on this level, but he Visconti just handles it so well, and I was so impressed. There's some unbelievable shots in this film, and Claudia Cardinal, I think that's all I need to say about this film, and that's all you need to know. And just watch the film. She is unreal.
Is number one Horizon?
No. I gave that 2.5. Number 1, without a doubt, is the second Bertolucci I watched this film, which was The Conformist. I've been meaning to watch this film for so long, and I finally got around to watching it. It is so good, man. Like I mentioned with The Dreamers, his ability to balance romance, politics, and tension is really good. Kind of both films have kind of big political events. In The Dreamers, you've got the outset of Paris student revolts in 1960s, I believe, or maybe it's earlier than that. But yeah, and this film is kind of centered around fascists, and our kind of fascist main protagonist is a really kind of weak and flawed character. I know Alex really likes that, so I'm assuming that's one of the big positives for his film, because he is an idiot, our main character. And yeah, just romance and tension, and I said in my review, Bertolucci knows exactly where he wants the camera in every scene. There are some incredible sequences and shots in this film, and yeah, man, the direction is just second to none. I absolutely love this. No doubt I'll be watching more of his films, but yeah, The Conformist, my favorite watch of the past week. And just want to give an honorable mention. Oh yeah. What were you gonna say?
I gotta check this guy out. I haven't really. I mean, I had heard his name maybe in passing, but I'm gonna have to go. Is The Dreamers a good intro?
What I've seen from
Watch The Dreamers. I watch it tonight. It's an interesting film. It's an interesting film.
Is his direction like similar to another person, or is he like pretty unique in his?
Yeah, but not filmmakers you're familiar with, probably.
Is it all Italian?
Yeah, no, he's actually done like films in other languages. Like they're all foreign language, as far as I know. But
the Dreamers is
Last Emperor. Last Emperor's in English. He's Best Picture winner.
Yeah,
that's in English.
Yeah, The Dreamers.
It doesn't make sense to be in English, but it's like forced to be.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of Italian movies. I've seen Salo.
Oh, you
should. Italian.
So that was actually directed by Pier Paolo Pasolini, who was Bertolucci's mentor.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
But honorable mention this week: Windy City Heat, which Ryan and I watched in a watch party. That you guys should absolutely. I think Evan, you'd absolutely love it. It's a it's a film about a guy who gets tricked into think he's making a film, but it's just the production he's in is just fake, and it is absolutely hysterical.
I think Alex would really like actually. It's this like proper Italian guy.
I think you would like it as well. And
it's Bobcat Goldthwait too. Yeah, I'll check this out.
Yeah, it was written by Jimmy Kimmel, I'm pretty sure, and he had a massive involvement in it. It's one of Saoirse Ronan's favorite films as well. But it's 90 minutes long. It's all on YouTube in great quality. It is so funny, man. That's such a funny film. That's my honorable mention of the week. But yeah, Ryan, what were your top 5 of the week?
Yeah, my number 5's Tampopo as well, like Evan.
Hell yeah.
It's such a comfort watch, probably. I'll return to it a lot. I couldn't stop thinking about eating ramen, which I made ramen for dinner tonight finally, after waiting
I'm
like a
also
week.
making ramen for dinner tonight.
I could not stop thinking about it. It was kind of scuffed, but it was actually pretty good. Number 4, I rewatched An American Werewolf in London after I'd seen it before, but like I don't even know when the last time I'd watched it. Yeah, just some of the best practical effects ever. The
So
transformation
good.
is insane. Yeah, that was a pretty close to 4.5. That was a real banger. I'll definitely return to that. Number 3 is Midsommar. They just got re-released in theaters for us in IMAX, which Midsommar is just one of the best, probably maybe in my top 20 horror films of all time. Oscar.
Nice joke. Nice joke.
No,
Nice
it's a
joke.
banger. Ari Aster's one of the best working today. And that's why my number 2 is also Hereditary, which I watched last night in IMAX. Top 5 horror films of all time. I'm not really sure where in that it places. You need to rewatch it. You've never even logged it on Letterboxd.
Do you not like Hereditary, Oscar?
No, I do. I have it at 4.5. It's just not top. It's just not top 5 horror.
You need
Damn.
to rewatch it.
Dude, I'd kill to see it in
Yeah.
IMAX.
It was so good. In Midsommar, especially, like the screams of Florence Pugh were like haunting it. Like that intro is so bad, and yeah, just Ari Aster's the current goat. I need him to come back to horror. Although Bo's Afraid was great, but it wasn't like I wouldn't call that horror.
It's superior to Hereditary, though.
What did you
I
say?
was afraid he's miles clear of.
I said Bo is
Midsommar.
Afraid is superior to Hereditary.
No, even I don't
That's
agree
what
with
I
that.
I agree with that. Bo's,
Thank you, Evan.
in my very hot take incoming, in my Ari Aster, Jordan Peele, Robert Eggers ranking, Bo's Afraid is number 1.
Respectable.
I love Bo's
I
Afraid.
respect that.
I love it as well, but that's
I
criminal.
don't agree with it.
That's
Midsommar,
criminal.
a little bit better.
Bo's Afraid hits close to home, and I just like think it's so brilliant in its depiction of anxiety. It's so
Which
good.
part is close to home?
The
The
mommy
attic
issue
scene.
shit, dude. That's oh yeah, the attic scene. Yeah, dude, I got a big cock monster in my attic. Dude, anytime I think of Bo's Afraid, I just think of the paint drinking scene, and it makes me feel so.
Oh,
it's so weird.
I've only seen it once. I haven't seen it in a year.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah,
to watch
same.
it again. It's so good.
Yeah,
So good.
Yeah, he's so good. And then my number 1 is Through a Glass Darkly. I've been on a Bergman binge for like a
Hell
couple
yeah.
weeks now. Evan had recommended this to me like I don't even know, like
a
6
while
months ago or
ago,
something.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I wanted to watch more Bergman before I watched it.
I swear you're like a
this is-
Bergman denier like a month ago.
Me? I've never slandered
Yeah.
Bergman. Oh wait, I don't. What's it called? What's the one that's like 30th in the top 250?
Evan Steele.
Autumn Sonata.
No, Autumn Sonata.
To be fair, that's
I
one
did
of his
not like that when
weakest
we watched it.
films. That's one of his weakest films. I do want to rewatch it though.
Yeah, I've not rewatched it
Well,
yet.
It's Fanny and Alexander though is just different level. Excited for you to see that.
Yeah, Seventh Seal was my favorite right now, but Through a Glass Darkly is
No.
my second. Like, she really like. Alex like hyped her up. Well, you say it's like the best performance of all time, don't you? Like, but like it really did
It
live up to that, especially
It
like, the
is.
final third. It's like
What? Who? Harry Anderson.
it's
Harry Anderson is the greatest actress of all time, and Through Glass Darkly is arguably the greatest performance of all time. The
Liv
only
Ullman
one
is
over it
better.
is Cries
Liv
and
Ullman
Whispers.
is better.
Also, Harry Anderson, and Liv
Yeah, you
Ullman is
love
the
Cries and
second greatest
Whispers.
actress of all
Liv-
time. Only answer I'll
Liv
accept.
Ullman is the greatest of all time.
That's
Persona.
It's the only other answer I will accept because they are 1 and 2. So it's the only one I'll accept.
I'll be rewatching Persona tonight, so
I can't believe
Good.
we're having a
Change that.
little.
Hopefully you
Bergman
wake up.
Glaze sesh. I can't even mention how amazing Autumn Sonata is right here.
I do want to rewatch it, but
You have it like a
Um,
2-star, right, Ryan? You don't like it.
2.5.
whoa,
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
It was like the first or maybe second Bergman I watched.
What are you watching next, Ryan? Cries and Whispers is great, by the way, and Shame as well.
What
I got
was it? I'm
Shame
watching in like
Top
release order.
Shame
So
is
it's
insane.
Persona.
I want to watch.
Yeah, Shame's coming up.
I need to watch Virgin Spring. That's one I've been dying to watch.
Oh, that's
with
he's number
Veronica.
3, I think, so far.
I need to watch.
You know those
Hour of
little
the Wolf.
clips-
That's really good as well.
Oh yeah, Hour of the
That
Wolf.
wasn't my favorite from him.
Hour of the Wolf's a horror movie.
Good film.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's a good
Just
film.
but finding Alexander and Persona are just on another level.
That's 1 and 2 for sure. It's easily 1 and 2.
That's not my 1 and 2.
And then Through Glass Darkly, easy 3.
Yeah, it's funny. Like Scenes of Marriage is fantastic as well, but for Scenes of Marriage and Finding Alexander, obviously you have the full like TV cuts of the film, the whatever. I haven't seen either of those, but I've just seen the films and they're still incredible. Like the Finding Alexander, just the 3-hour film is one of my favorite films ever. It's unbelievable.
I just
I'm
got
excited
this
'cause, like-
from a Marriage Criterion, and it has the TV cut on it, and I need to watch it, but it's so long. It's like 7 hours.
I'm so happy. My
Yeah.
first watch of Alexander was in a cinema. That was incredible.
It's the only time I've seen it. I haven't got a chance to rewatch it yet.
The visuals are
Yeah,
insane.
I'm like 20 years into his career or something. Like the longest movie done was like 1 hour 40. So like, and he does the jump.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Bergman only makes
40 hours or something.
Bergman only makes 90-minute films or 180-minute films.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nowhere in between.
Yeah, but that's my top 5.
All right.
Nice.
First, I got to say Oscar's top 5 is probably the best top 5 we've heard on this podcast yet. All international
Damn
films,
right.
all masterpieces. Is one Conformist is like in my top 10 favorite films ever. Like on the film I'm making right now, like it's probably the biggest influence of any film, along with Once Upon a Time in America. Like I love that film so much. Contempt is a great film. Love Godard. The Leopard's another one. That is, I think, one of the most underrated films in history now. I'm surprised Oscar knew about the unification, because normally I'm like the only person who knows about it.
I know so much on the unification of it. I just studied it in high school the last 2 years, so they're called A levels over here. I know so much about that, man. We have a biscuit named Garibaldi. Like, it's part of our history.
Yeah, most Italian Americans have no clue what that is, which is kind of But and then Paolo Sorrentino's Youth, another great film. My quick couple honorable mentions. Like last week, I was at De Niro. I was at Tribeca, and they also had the De Niro con. So I'm not going to include these because I watch them all the time. But in theaters, got to watch Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, 3 of the best films ever, along with Jackie Brown with a on 35mm with a Q&A of De Niro and Tarantino after. That was completely awesome. But I also rewatch Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I see in theaters every year, so I'm not going to include that, along with seeing Batman 89 with a live orchestra. That was totally awesome. But
I would have ascended when the theme started playing. That's crazy.
It was incredible. At that point, it was still bright out, so we couldn't even see the screen. But I didn't even care because the music was just so fire. It was outside, by the way.
I've never seen Batman 89. I gotta get to that.
You're missing out on the best Batman theme of all
Dude,
time.
the only old Batman movie I've seen is Batman Forever.
I mean,
cinema, absolute cinema.
You need to see Returns.
That's all I watched.
Return
on
is
as a
so
kid.
good.
I'm pretty sure you gave me Returns in the film raffle like a year ago. So now that you watched it.
I'll throw another honorable mention. This movie, Raising Victor Vargas, I saw for a film course I'm taking right now. It was a really interesting, culturally specific film I liked a lot. Now getting into my top 5, I don't even ordered it. I could order them. Number 5, I'll go with Ariel, which is a film, quick, short watch from Aki Kaurismäki, who's becoming one of my favorite filmmakers. He did Fallen Leaves, which was one of my favorites of last year. Totally Kaurismäki film in every way. Really enjoyed that one a lot. Next, number 4, I will go with Better Tomorrow from John Woo, one of the great action directors of Hong Kong and then later in America. This was just such a fun film. It was awesome. So much style. I totally loved and really enjoyed this film. It's just so like unapologetic and it's like over the top, over dramatic style, which I loved. Then next up, I am going to go with, let's see, I got that. All right. Next up, I'm going to go with South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut. This is a film that I've seen a bunch of times, but I'm including it because I haven't rewatched it in a while. There was a sing-along in theaters because it is a musical, for those of you who don't know. It is just one of the funniest movies ever made. It's fucking hilarious.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I was supposed to take my little brother to go again tonight, but he has a soccer practice, so I can't go with him. But it's it's just absolutely fucking hilarious. You have to see it if you have not yet. Number 2, easily one of my best first watches of the year. Last night I saw Jean-Pierre Melville's Les Samurai. This is just awesome. Alain Delon was already one of my favorite actors, and this is easily his best performance. He's just so stone cold. I love Hitman movies. It's one of the best Hitman movies ever made.
I could not stop thinking about Les Samurai when watching The Conformers. Just the two protagonists, just like the outfits are just so similar.
So similar. Both Hitman movies, too.
Yeah.
Although very different Hitmen.
Yes, very.
In terms of skill set. But it's just, it had me like so immersed in the film. Like I'm not one of those people who really like gets lost to the point where I don't think I'm watching a movie. But like this movie, I was so immersed, I did forget I was watching a movie. Like it was just one of the greatest first watch experiences I've had all year. I absolutely love this film and can't wait to rewatch it. My number 1, I am going to go with a film that I saw at the NeuroCon because it was incredible. This is a film that inspired me to want to make films. It's one of the greatest films I think I've ever seen. It's easily one of the most relatable films in terms of my own personal life. And not only all of that, I got to see it at the Beacon Theater in New York, which is a great like art house theater, like gigantic, like an old like opera house. And none other than my biggest idol and inspiration did a Q&A after, the one and only Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. And it was just one of the greatest experiences of my life. I can't not put that at number 1. Mean Streets has had such an impact on my life. And seeing Scorsese, who is literally the most influential person on my life, do a Q&A after being in the same room as him for the first time ever was an incredible experience. So that is easily my number 1.
Imagine not having already seen him IRL. That's crazy.
I know, is it? You've both seen him talking about Mean Streets. This isn't fair.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, what did you say, Ryan?
You and Oscar have both seen him like talk about Mean Streets in person.
Oh yeah, he did it in the London one too.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I got to watch.
He talked about all of his films when I was in London. Oh dear,
Alex, it was so crazy. My girlfriend, she like scrolls through and sends me the most obscure movies ever. She sent me really quick. She sent me a movie called Lair of the Shit. Let me pull it up.
Lair of the Shit.
yeah. Apologies, bad. I should have it ready. God damn it. It's a Ken Russell movie, Lair of the White.
Which?
White Worm.
Yeah, I know the
Lair of the White Worm. She sends me a text and she says, I read the Letterboxd reviews and the first one said, this is a penis film. So how about we watch it? And I clicked on it and I was like, she doesn't know who Ken Russell is, but I clicked on it. Holy shit, Ken Russell. I fucking love Altered States. Let's watch it. But she texts me, she says and she doesn't really love watching foreign films because she does like paint by numbers and adult coloring books while we watch movies. She got
fire watches too.
Yeah, dude, she does. Absolutely.
It's a virus. It's spreading.
It was so crazy. I set her up with like a second monitor on the couch, like how I do it sometimes, and she bought Hogwarts Legacy and played the entire game while we watched movies all week. While I was watching the De Palma movies, she was playing Hogwarts Legacy. But she goes, I got these 2 movies I really want to watch. They're both from this French guy. And I was like, okay, that's like kind of weird for you. She goes, one of them's called Les Samurai, and the other one is, I can't remember the name. And I said, holy shit, like, because Cash watched it and he was talking about it on the Film Scoop, and I was like, oh my God. But I was like, where do you find this shit? Like, I know where I find it, but like a person who's not into film, where do you find these movies? So I'll be watching it soon.
You should.
Alex, have you seen any Ken Russell films?
I have not seen a Ken Russell film.
Really?
English guy. You're gonna
love The Devil.
Staple of English direction. What a legend, man.
I think you'd really
He's
like the
so
Devils,
good.
Alex. It's crazy.
Altered States is one of my favorite films ever.
Shout out to Ryan for
I've heard of Altered
Ryan and Daniel
States.
sent me Altered States.
The Devils is nuts.
Devils is sick.
Oh, dear.
All right. I think we should get back to talking about I Saw the TV Glow. So I think let's get into now the behemoth of the color theory of the film, because there's just so much to talk about with the colors of this film. And I think the colors are one of the most interesting parts of the film. I notice like when I watch a film, like I don't really at first at least think of colors like in terms of symbolically what they represent in society. I more think of like color temperature, where they are on the color spectrum. So I noticed that most of the colors, with the exception of 3 scenes that I can think of where there's this bright, vibrant red, aside from that, they're almost all colors from the bottom end of the color spectrum, with greens, blues, purples, and pinks, which pink kind of wraps around to the top, but all in that kind of group together in the color spectrum, which is where I was thinking at first. And then Cash sent us a list of kind of what the colors meant in the trans community. And that kind of really gave me a fresh perspective on what the colors mean in terms of this film. And really mostly blue and pink, where the scene where they first watch the pink ope, and it's like the music comes on and it's coming from under, there's the strong pink light, like Evan mentioned earlier. And Owen is just mesmerized by this pink light and just slowly, like almost subconsciously, like just moves in, like he's like sucked into the trance of the TV from the pink light, which obviously is very symbolic and like just speaking with the picture for the internal state of the character rather than an exposition dump. And it's just that right there is just absolute pure cinema. And there's like almost like this battle between the pink and the blue a lot of the time in the film, where like the chalk, where like Evan talked about, where there's still time, that's pink. In it's not the opening scene, but it's like right after where he meets Madison, where there's like this vibrant pink vending machine behind them, and then there's like this dull blue wall on the other side. And like I said, I think I see the film as a film about feeling alive. And I think one of the most memorable scenes is not a scene where there's any dramatic conflict or any, on-screen action, really. It's just him walking through the hallway with the music. And it's just, this is when like he's in the middle of just watching the show and just the kind of almost like compressing all of the experience of watching the show into this one, where all the characters doing is walking through a hallway. But there's the vibrant pink text, like the VFX, like journal text on screen. And then until he walks into the hallway where it's obviously surreal because no school has a pink window, but it's like now it's bright with like pink windows. And so the pink is very much associated with the scenes where the character really feels like alive and is feeling like fulfilled. Blue, on the other hand, is very much used where the scenes where the character feels repressed, which is, scenes like when we make the time jump and the characters at work, the uniforms are blue, the hallway's blue, the everything about the production design is blue. And like I said, the character goes home that night, the blue light shines on the TV before what I think is a dream, but no matter how you interpret it, there's still the blue light in this like sad coming home from work day. Like Evan said, when the show ends, it's blue light now. And it's like, it's the blue light on the inside of the show also is what sucks Isabel away, because Isabel is the character who Owen seems to identify with. And it's blue light as that character is sucked away. And also then when he goes and he's like, I have a family now, I'm older, the house he's living in is blue, his wardrobe is blue, and a lot of like Mr. Melancholy is also blue. So I think that the film does a really interesting job of this kind of battle between the color blue and the color pink, with blue kind of the scenes of repression and the pink scenes of like creatively feeling alive and feeling at peace with Owen's self.
There's just something about purples and greens that they're just such nice colors, and especially for this kind of thing. That shot that we get of the ice cream truck with like all the smoke coming out of it, and just the purple and green just looks absolutely incredible.
That ice cream shot particularly was probably the best shot in the film. It's just such a breath of fresh air, like hearing Jane Schoenbrun like talk about this movie. Like talk about any movies really. Like talk about this as a visual medium that doesn't follow the set structure. Like we were saying, like it's films aren't just about the narrative, and you really see that through this and her debut, where it's a lot of importance on visual storytelling. Um, like where Alex is saying, like through the colors, the tone, the different styles throughout the film, which are forever changing as we progress kind of through the narrative. They talked about Coppola's Dracula as one of their favorite horror film inspirations, and you can very clearly see that with the use of lighting and colors in this film because it one looks incredible. Dracula's probably one of the best looking horror films ever made, and just the range of colors used are amazing just in that film. Lighting a lot of the time now feels almost like a lost art form nowadays with like the change from kind of film to digital where they don't really have to bother doing it. Luckily, they decided to shoot this in 35mm film, where effort actually has to be put into making or lighting the film. And they've done a great job, like Alex has been saying, along with the blends of animation and just the kind of tone of the film, creating that nostalgic feeling of the. I think we mentioned it earlier, the VHS type scenes in the pink opaque. Just so many different variations of getting across the themes of the movie throughout different visual storytelling techniques. I think make this film stand out so much visually. And I love like all the natural light sources that they make. Like Alex was saying, like the TVs, the fish tanks. There's so much stuff like that they do that are so interesting to light this film. Probably one of the stuff that stood out to me the most in terms of the visual storytelling was that intro scene with Owen under the parachute as a kid. It's kind of like bright, like colorful. It's really colorful. It's hopeful. And then pretty much later on, when we hit that like 8 years later section, you notice the difference in saturation. It's still colorful because everything, well, every scene in this movie is beautiful still. But it has that more sense of darkness and it's less hopeful than the start, and it's really shown for that first section of the film, or the first section in that last third of the film when he's in the deflated bouncy castle. And that really contrasts that like intro where it's really hopeful and he's under like the kind of parachute. I really love like the contrast between those two scenes. And it really emphasized that theme of like the innocence of their childhood being gone, and looking back at like the time that's passed. And again, in that final scene when he's in the arcade, it's still really colorful. It's almost overwhelming at times how many colors there is in that room. The production design is incredible in that room, and I think their aim was to kind of overwhelm you with that. There's so much flashing lights and colors, but again, it still feels like it doesn't have the life of the early sections of the film, which hones into all the themes in the film. So I think visually this is like so amazing, and I love like Jane's kind of views and ways thinks about film.
Insane. Like Alex was saying, like when the pink is on screen, you feel Owen kind of feels at home. And it's kind of interesting because this is like labeled as a horror movie. I don't find it super horror centered. I think it's more of a coming of age movie, but when you see pink in a shot, you feel safe. Like you feel relatively safe. This is a moment where you get to see Owen as who he is and who he wants to be, and it's like, okay, like this is progression for him. But then yeah, those moments of blue, like the pink opaque being associated with the pink glow, you're like, this is an amazing thing, and it's like it's so exciting to see this kid like fall into his own like shoes, like be where he needs to be. And then that the pink opaque has never been associated with bad or like danger, and when he watches the finale, it's the blue light, and you're like, yeah, this is one of the very few scary scenes in the movie, and it reinforces what they've been trying to build, because that blue is always kind of associated with those more darker scenes that don't feel as safe. I don't know if safe is the right word, but it's just like you're not on edge. Not that this movie, I mean, like I said, the bathtub scene makes me very uncomfortable, and that again, they're blue in that scene. The sparks from the TV when he's putting his head in the TV is blue. Like it kind of builds right from the first shot where the parachute is the exact same colors as the trans flag, and you're okay. If you know that going in, you're like, okay, that's what this is here. And it just throws you for a turn without you realizing it. It's like everything in this movie is like it's so indirect, and I just think it's brilliant. It was so funny the vending machine scene that Alex brought up. Um I was talking to Cash about it, and he's like, "Man, this I don't." He was saying that it's Fruitopia is the company, uh, and that can be like fruit is like sometimes a word like a slur for people of that community. That's like a common pop that we have here, and I was like, "Oh
That's
shit,
like
I love fruit." I saw it, and I was like, "I love Fruitopia. Like that's what I get when I go to McDonald's." So I didn't like really click for me, and that's one of the reasons I love talking about this movie so much is that like each person picks up on something that you might have missed, and like Oscar said, like it's so hard to do it on first watch because it's a visually and audio wise overstimulating film. It throws so much at you, and like Ryan was saying with the arcade scene, like it assaults your senses, but in that like overwhelming moment, that's where like the substance is found in a good chunk of the scenes, and I just think that's so interesting because it grants so much rewatch value to this movie. Like you watch it and it fucks you up, and it's like Alex said, he's like, I don't know what I just watched, I don't know what it means, but I liked it. He Alex called me like it's like 7:30. I'm sitting on my couch and he goes, "Dude, how's the music in this movie?" And I said, "Oh, it's pretty good." He's like, "Yeah, the music's good, the visuals are good." I said, "Yeah," and he's like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know if I should smoke before this. All right, see ya," and hung up. I was like, "Yeah, all right, cool." Um, yeah, I think that it's such an interesting film because yeah, it's enjoyable to watch from a filmmaking standpoint, and I think the vibes are insane, especially because the score and soundtrack are so good. But then you dig through all of the craziness, and there's so much substance there that you have to dig for. Like we were talking about the ice cream truck scene, and green is one of the colors associated with the non-binary uh, flag. And Cash was like, "Well, maybe," because we had a long talk about this movie. He was like, "Well, that's kind of like maybe Owen's." This is right when he's first watching the Pink Opaque, and he's kind of questioning. He's starting to question things, so maybe he's in the middle. It doesn't know quite where he's landing, and I think that's a really cool interpretation of that color because you can look at it and be like, "Ah, shit, that's a really cool green smoking ice cream truck." And yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant filmmaking, and everything feels intentional, but it's really weird when it feels so intentional, yet everyone is kind of feeling different about it. It's a really cool feeling.
That's what's so good about it, though.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. Yeah, I think it's insane.
Real quick, because you talked about the color green, I think this is really an interesting conversation because, well, one, you mentioned also like the greens, like you said, it's associated with non-binary, and there's also the ice cream truck where there's like the twist ice cream of like two different flavors kind of like mixed together. But it's interesting because I think the color green is actually associated a lot more with Madison's character. And if you notice at her house, there's the green light from the fish tank. And we don't really see Owen lit with green light, but we see Madison lit with green light multiple times, including when he sleeps over her house and they're sleeping. He's lit blue and she's lit green. And they really associate her with the color green, including when when she, I guess, comes back from the dead, or like when she returns in the grocery store. He's walking through the vegetable aisle where it's all green vegetables all around. And then there's like a green, it's not like a strong green light like we see in some of the other scenes, but it's what's it called? It's like a shade of green light. Like it's got a green tint to it, kind of almost like the Matrix a bit. Like it's got like a bit of a tint of green light. So I noticed that green is very associated with Madison's character, which I think is really interesting. It's also worth noting that the scene at the bleachers, Owen's wearing a pink shirt, and he says that like they talk about what's inside of them, and she says she doesn't know what's inside of her. And if you notice, her character is wearing black and white. She's not wearing any colors, and uh, the background behind her of the fence is much tighter behind Madison than it is. It's more open behind Owen, but in front of
Really?
behind Madison, it's a lot tighter. So I just think there's so many kind of subtle things that I'm not quite sure how to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but I see that there's things that Jane is doing with Madison's character trying to be communicated that I'm just not totally. I haven't put the pieces of the puzzle together yet.
Yeah, I think Madison's character is so interesting. Like Maddie's character, like you focus all your every single brain cell goes into picking apart Owen as a person, but Maddie is this huge presence in the movie and is the like it kickstarts all of this. So it's hard to dissect Maddie as a character, especially because Maddie doesn't really get as much backstory. Like it's not told from her point of view. You don't know what's going on inside. You get one slip where it's be out in the morning or my dad will break my nose again if he catches me. And that's like the one time you get it, and the rest is kind of just like reading her facial expressions or like it's so weird because Maddie is pretty it seems that Maddie is pretty like secure in her own identity. She knows that she's gay. She's like kind of open about it, and it's more that she feels so trapped in her own house. But then you get that football field scene, and you get the planetarium scene, which the planetarium scene, like because at first it's just the stars, and the stars like yellowy green, but then when they put the actual like people, those are green too. I noticed that. But those scenes, Maddie, it's just monologue after monologue, and you're kind of thrown into a lot of confusing statements, and Maddie is all over the place. It's like everything she's saying is super panicky, even though it's like a pretty stoic monologue until like the end of the planetarium scene. So every time I watch this movie, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lock in, I'm gonna dig deep on Maddie's character, and it never happens because I just kind of get lost in the movie itself. But yeah, what did you guys think of Maddie as a character?
I really liked how, like, I feel like, obviously, like you said, like, she knew more about herself at least at the main points of the film that we see, opposed to Owen. But, like, I really liked how, like, Jane talked about, like, how, like, they used the show to kind of, like, break away from the suburbia, like we were talking about earlier, and, like, kind of form their own identity for the show. And I think that's where, like, the pink opaque kind of shines in the film. I loved, like, the 90s, or I mean, they were 90s, but I feel like they kind of blended over into 2000s because I'd seen a lot of the shows that talked about for influences. The main one, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I didn't really watch that. But I watched Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark? They were also big influences, kind of like gateway horror for teens. Yeah, they were so good. I was straight up thinking about Goosebumps like throughout the whole film because it was kind of like that like campy like horror for teens. And then that scene where he goes back and watches it. I had that like exact thing when I went back and watched the episodes, and they just weren't as scary because they like traumatized me as a kid. I was watching one of the interviews with I don't know what's the actor's name for Owen.
Justice Smith.
Justice Smith.
Yeah, he literally referenced the exact episode that I was thinking from Goosebumps because there's an episode where like a little girl puts on like a monster mask and like the mask like takes over her body and like she can't take the mask off. And I was literally thinking of that episode where he like watches it back and like doesn't think it's as good. And he said he thought of the exact same episode. So that was crazy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, they're just like the whole like show to kind of like escape reality with Maddie. I thought was really interesting. Yeah, just like in the way like Jane explored like the oppression and shame of finding your own identity, like throughout the shows, kind of forming your identity through the shows, and how it kind of like I thought that was really some of the most interesting stuff in the movie. Like I said earlier, like it wasn't autobiographical, but it feels so personal, like all the themes in the film. So yeah, I really love those two characters. They kind of express those.
Yeah, backtracking a bit to what Evan said about the kind of projections of the constellations and how that becomes like the images. I think that, at least my interpretation was, it's kind of fitting of the film where it's our own, the way we project images onto media, and like we kind of to a degree create the movie or show in our own minds, in terms of like coming from something inside of us, we create a projection of ourselves to a degree on media. And I think like I really related to this one scene so much. And it's when he goes back and watches the Pinko Pay again as an adult. And he's like, it's like, it felt like kind of cheesy, and it just looks nothing like how we saw it earlier. And this is again, like,
I was just saying this when you went away.
what did you say?
Oh, we were just talking about that when you went away.
Oh, my bad.
Were you gonna? No, it's fine. Were you gonna like reference something that you like happened to you?
Yeah, I had to run to the bathroom real quick, but yeah, no, it reminded me so much of Power Rangers, and because I was such a huge Power Rangers fan as a kid, and I remember there's one episode where there's like the pig monster, and I remember watching it at like 4 or 5 years old and being like, I remember it like scaring the shit out of me. And then like I remember watching it back when I was like 7 or 8 and being like, this is the corniest thing ever. And if you look at it, like literally just search Power Rangers pig monster and it'll come up. Like it's the corniest, cheapest costume ever. And that scene just reminded me so, like, I feel like most people, like maybe not, I feel like even today's kids, like most people can probably relate to that, of like something that felt so real as a kid, and then you go back and watch it when you're older and it just looks so cheap and corny. But it really is like the film exploring like how we project elements of ourselves onto media. And I think the way that Owen's character sees the Pinko Pay is very much more of a reflection of what's inside of his character than the show itself, which I think is really interesting.
I thought you were gonna say the Power Rangers movie, because I used to be terrified by the goo, like the purple goo and that as well.
Like you guys were mentioning that scene where he goes back and watches it. That's kind of like a mini attack on streaming as well. It's like, oh, it's all streaming now, and it's just everything's there, and it's all rubbish. Yeah, so I kind of smiled at that scene. I thought that was really clever.
And the differences between like the practical effects of the ice cream man being like really cool at the start, and then it's just this really lame, like stupid thing at the end.
And just
like that's what's cool about the ice cream truck scene as well, because it looks so good at the start, and that's kind of like Owen like looking back at like what it was like watching the show as a kid. That's why it is the best shot in the movie, because that's just what he remembers the show being like.
And the differences of the TV as well, because he gets a new TV in now. Even for us, it just doesn't feel the same. It just doesn't have that same feel. And I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. I think that's another great example of people who say this, oh yeah, this movie, like, it didn't speak to me. Like you guys were saying, I think every single person has a thing that scared the absolute shit out of them when they were a kid. They didn't watch it for like 20 years and then went back to it. For me, Spider-Man 2, saw that shit in theaters when I was let's see, what year did that come out? Yeah, I was
2004.
I was 5 years old when I saw that movie. Walked out, mom took me to the pet store, and my dad and brother watched the rest of it. I didn't watch it until I was like 22, like during the pandemic. I had not seen it again.
Well, was it the Doc Ock scene?
Yeah, the Doc Ock shits.
Yeah, that is straight up horror though.
I talked about that on our Spider-Man episode, but honestly, like it's so valid to be like the pig monster of Power Rangers is like corny. Like the Doc Ock scene is actually so valid to be terrified of.
I'm trying to think what I was like TV
I remember
show
the Incredible
scared me.
Hulk, the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk. The scene when
Oh, that was scary.
Tim Roth is getting the injections, and the doctor looks at him and he goes, the back ones are gonna hurt," and then injects him with these big ass needles. It scared the shit out of me as a kid.
I think
Also,
what scared me.
kind of a sleeper hit, Knowing, with Nicolas Cage. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That movie kept me up for like a week straight because I was like 8 years old watching this movie, and it doesn't have a particularly happy ending, and it was like 8-year-old Evan experiencing an existential crisis about death, and I'm just like, oh, I'm fucked, like, yeah, I'm gonna die. I'm laying in bed. But
Finding
watching it
Nemo
back,
definitely scared me. What is that?
hell yeah,
What
that's
is
awesome.
that?
Oh yeah, Finding Nemo scared me too.
This
think
is like
that's
I don't know. This is such a valid one because it's so obvious. But the scene in the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, just as a child, I was
Temple of Doom
No,
too.
the second one.
Yeah,
Temple of
Doom.
Doom.
No.
That scared every kid.
No, because for some reason you get all those films like the Harry Potter films, all that had such low age ratings in the low 2000s, and obviously all before that 80s, 90s, the age ratings were so off. So they give like a slap of PG rating on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh yeah, let's some kids watch some bodies, just skin and flesh melt off their bones, and it was crazy.
Did you know PG-13 rating exists because of Temple of Doom?
Yeah.
That was the movie where they made the PG-13 rating.
Wait, which scene? Which scene? Because of
The scene where like
the
they
heart
ripped
scene,
out his
probably.
heart.
Oh, the heart.
Yeah.
scene,
Like
I
lower
haven't seen it in a
and
while.
blades. Temple of Doom, I think, scared every kid.
I think Raiders of the Lost Ark scared me more, and the scene in Last Crusade where the guy drinks from the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's the best Indiana Jones film, though.
The scene with Kate Blanchett in the fourth one when she gets eaten by the ants, that scared me.
Oh, the ants and the guy. Oh, yes, the ants.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, Kate Blanchett doesn't die there. It's the other guy here.
No, it's the other guy that's eaten by the ants.
None of them are near as scary as the pig monster, though.
It's thingy, Power Rangers is that's the definition of a shitty banger. That movie.
That really is, dude. It's the greatest show ever, but it's like so corny and cheap.
Yeah.
Like when they cut out to like the Megazord, it's like just so obviously a toy, and then they cut to them in the room, and it's just like nothing matches even a little bit. And you have no orientation as to like where they are.
Oh dear. What else scared me as a child? I'm trying to remember now.
There was this episode of like a ghost hunter TV show on YTV about like these banshees that screamed when people died or something. Terrified me. The Haunting in Connecticut was one of the first horror movies I ever saw. Ruined my week. But that was like,
my mom showed
that's
me
like
like
actual horror.
Nightmare on Elm Street when I was like 7 or something. Like, that doesn't count.
I got one every
Alex never know what this is, but there's some like TV shows. Do you remember the Sarah Jane Adventures, Ryan?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that?
I don't remember being scary, but I did watch it. Yeah.
Doctor Who in general.
Doctor Who, yeah. Doctor Who had some good moments of horror.
There's some such good horror moments in that show, which I kind of love to see adapted. Just the Weeping Angels in general would be so cool. But the Empty Child, the one with the child with all the gas masks on.
Oh yeah,
that
the astronauts one. Where like if you looked at, you looked at them, you died, or I can't remember how.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Doctor Who in general, just that was crazy.
It's just that like 90s, 2000s era where they just didn't give a fuck and like just were able to traumatize children was so much better.
Yep.
Yeah, because they just give like traumatizing low rating, just like convinced that age rating people just did not care. In those
Dude,
days.
Poltergeist is rated PG, and that movie has some insane body horror in it.
Yeah.
Jaws is rated PG, and that jump
Yeah.
scare in nighttime with the boat. Where I remember watching that for the first time, when like the head just comes from the side. I remember that. It was awful. But yeah, age ratings are crazy back then.
Bob's head in the Halloween special. He's got the brain.
Dude, there's
All
this
right.
fucking Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors
Those are
where
bangers.
all of them, the entire family gets their skin turned inside out. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. It terrified me as a kid.
Not
And I
sure.
love The Simpsons.
I've seen
Parents
it.
wouldn't
Yeah,
let
I
me watch.
remember.
Yeah, my parents wouldn't let me watch Family Guy because it was too inappropriate. I was like 10 years old. Like, oh, you can watch The Simpsons, and it gave me horrific nightmares. That one episode. But that's like, man, that's what I like. I saw the TV Glow directing this insane conversation about childhood nostalgia. That's awesome. That's sick.
But I think we're 2 hours deep now. Does anyone have any wrap up thoughts on the film?
Go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. One last thing I,
I mean,
want to
if
bring
you're
up
still
really
watching
quick.
and haven't seen it, it's pretty bad. We've
Yeah.
spoiled everything there is to spoil.
Yeah. One thing I kind of missed was in the bar. I think it's the football scene or the bar scene. Maddie's hand looks like a straight old woman's hand, and it's like the aging things are really interesting. Like we didn't really get into it, but I didn't notice it on my first watch. But Cash mentioned that when he goes to when the movie theater closed down and he moves to the arcade, everyone is the exact same age, and he's like 85 years old. Like it's such a great way of showing how this is just straight killing him. Like, dude, Owen is just the goat. What a goated character.
Yeah, it's like the time's passing like too much.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the hand in the bar. I really like the bar scene, sorry, because of the music. I feel like that was also that was Twin Peaks like as well, because it almost like stops to have this like musical performance in every Twin Peaks episode. And
no, I didn't even think about
that.
Twin Peaks: The Return, every end is just
wait, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it goes to like a bar and there's like people on the stage.
Every end of Twin Peaks: Return is a bar. And obviously the bar's a big center of Twin Peaks. It's just a band playing in a bar. That didn't even click with me. That's crazy.
Dude, Oscar, you gotta watch it again.
That's crazy.
I need to watch
it's so good.
Alex, have you seen Twin Peaks?
No.
That's a
the only
That was a stupid question.
Only Lynch I haven't seen.
You can skip the filler. I skipped the filler. I didn't want to sour my experience.
I got to get like really sick one day, and then I'll just binge it.
Yeah, go watch. Good. I saw the TV Glow. It's amazing.
Have you started the Return, Evan?
No, because the season 2 finale ends in a way that I don't even want more, and I'm like, and I know there's a time jump, so I'm like, well.
You have to.
Yeah, I know.
You have to.
It's hard. It's hard to talk about without spoiling. But the final shot of season 2 is like, how can they time jump and do more? So dude, you guys saying that TV Glow is similar to this? Like,
have you still not watched the last 4 episodes? You have 4 episodes left, and you still haven't watched them.
I'll get back to it.
It's hard to get back into TV once you stop.
It's 4 episodes. It's 4 episodes, man.
I know, but
dude, that's like why I haven't watched House of the Dragon yet.
Like the last 2 episodes are so good.
Yesterday was the anniversary of episode 9, so I think I'm going to go back to that and then just start from there and finish it.
Episode 9 is peak David Lynch.
One of the best episodes of TV ever.
Are you talking about season 1, episode 9?
No, season 3, episode 9.
Oh shit! Really?
It's crazy. Yeah,
it's so good.
All right.
Thank you so much for bringing me back for this. I love this movie so much, and it's such a fun movie to talk about because all of us kind of have different ideas about it, and it's just I'm very happy I got to come back and yap.
It was great having you on, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime.
But
go and check out the Average Film Enjoyers podcast.
Yeah, check out the Average Film Enjoyer. We'll put a link in the description. Like, subscribe, comment, all that shit, and we'll be back next week.